Hey, welcome to another season of Phil John's VIP. I want to say thank you for joining me tonight. I am so glad that I am able to do this once again. I know it's been a long time coming and I appreciate it. Listen, tonight I am blessed to have the filmmaker, director, producer, co-director, editor, composer, Brent McCorkle. I was blessed to see his work along with Erwin Brothers earlier this year. A movie entitled Jesus Revolution that is sweeping the nation. It chronicles the Jesus movement during the early 1970s, and the title is Jesus Revolution, and it is just making waves throughout the country in theaters all over. So, Brent, if you can, please join me. I can't wait for you guys to meet him. I believe I've watched some of his work. He's talented, gifted in so many different areas, and without further ado, I'm not going to keep this. I'm not going to keep it long, but I'm going to present to you tonight, Mr. Brent McCorkle. Here we go. Let him. You hear? Fingers crossed. You come. All you got to do is I got you. Ah, there he
You
is.
made it.
How are you, sir?
Good, dude. What's going on, man?
Good. First of all, let me just say thank you so much for joining me tonight. I appreciate you just making the time to come have a conversation with
Oh,
me.
man. And thanks for having me on, dude. It's going to be fun.
Good. Listen, I went to go see Jesus Revolution and I was completely blown away by it. It took me by storm. Just I grew up in church and I knew of the Jesus movement, but I didn't know the story in detail as much as I learned during watching the movie. So please tell me how did that marriage between you and the Erwin brothers happen, and how did Jesus Revolution come about?
Yeah, so I've been working with Jon and Andy for almost a decade now. We both had our first feature films come out the same year, 2012, and we just had this mutual admiration and respect for each other. In 2014, Andy was the editor of the brothers, and he was doing a big football movie, and he was wiped out from the movie prior, and I was too, man. So he called me to work on Woodlawn with him as his editor. So we edited Woodlawn together. I ended up doing some story consulting and also doing some music on that. And so they let me wear my hats, that I normally wear. And I actually had a good time with them. And so we rolled right from Woodlawn into I Can Only Imagine, and they let me even wear even more hats on that one. I had a cameo. I worked in art department one night. I scored all the music. I helped produce the band. I wrote it with Jon. I edited it with Andy, and I was the second unit director. So they just kind of let me run wild and, be my jack of all trades that I normally am. So that was really great. And then I've done a few documentaries with them. I've done worked on Jesus music. I worked on Steve McQueen, and I worked on the Johnny Cash documentary that Kingdom did. So I've done a bunch of projects with them, and it so happens that Jesus Revolution has been trying to get made for 7 years, and it's fallen apart a couple times. And so the third time it came back around, I was available. Andy is working on another movie that he wants to do that he's really passionate about, but Jon really loves collaborating, and so there was room for me to jump in and direct with Jon on this one. And I also scored the music and helped pre-produce everything and prep everything. And so
I
yeah,
definitely
man.
want to get into that.
Yeah.
But Unconditional was solely your own. That was your solo project.
Well, I mean, yeah, with the team, I mean, I had a really good team on that movie. But yeah, I wrote it, edited it, directed it, and then I composed it with a buddy of mine. So I co-composed it. But yeah, I wore a lot of hats on that one too. And yeah, I'm definitely like a blue collar type of filmmaker. I grew up working on crew, and I like working hard. It feels very much like a factory. It feels very much like we're going to go in, all going to work hard, and we're going to produce this awesome thing together. So I always tell people, for me, filmmaking feels like a pirate ship, and I'm quick to dismiss directors that take an outsized amount of credit. filmmaking is a team sport, and you're only as good as your cast and your crew. So I had an amazing cast and crew on this one, and I'm just so proud of what everybody brought to it.
I agree with that. I think all art, especially with theater and television and film, it's a community. It's a collaboration of all. I worked on Kaleidoscope before it dropped in January, and it's just like just a team of people. So it feels good when you can finally look at the final product and see, you know, what your all of your artwork have went into.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, I always tell people, the directors that want to take all the credit, that's like someone on a pirate ship that has a crew of 400 people and he's at the wheel going, I did this. It's like that ship's going nowhere without your team, you know? So yeah, man, I was really impressed by the Oscars this year. Without fail, almost everyone thanked their team profusely and said that they were winning an award by proxy for a team, for a larger team.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I think the world's waking up to that. Filmmaking, theater, music, it's a highly collaborative sport. And it's a community, like you said. It's a family. And we had really great morale on this film. Most films can be very toxic work environments because everybody's pushed to their max. And so you get the best and the worst of everyone on a film set. And I can say with just a lot of gratitude and happiness that this project, we all had fun, man. We all had fun. We all worked hard, but a ton of people put a bunch of love into this, and there were tears on set, but the good kind of tears. And even when I remember one time we asked a lady, you know, we were on the edge, man. So we were on the edge of time and overtime and all that stuff. And when you have a certain scenario in which, you know, you need someone to come in earlier, but they don't have to, according to union rules. They can make, no, I'm not coming in early. I'm working till midnight tonight, and I don't want to come in at 6, you know?
Yeah.
So I remember I went up to this lady, and we were so tired. We were exhausted. And I was like, hey, look, I know this is rough. Just say no, it's fine. But just because of what's happening with cast, and we're going to lose them at a certain time tomorrow, could you possibly come in early? And she just looked at me and she goes, yeah, totally. Let's do it. And man, it just meant so much to me because we were all so tired, you know, pushing so hard. But that kind of epitomized the journey, I think, for all of us. Like we were tired and working really hard, but everybody was just in it, you know. Everybody was in it to win it, and the good vibes were flowing. And so I feel like a lot of that translated to the final screen.
I think you would say you were all committed to the mission, right? You were moving with intention.
Yeah, I think so. You know, that's another thing I love about Jon and Andy is we'll work with people from all walks of life. They don't have to walk like me, talk like me, dress like me. They can have totally different hair color than me, even different worldview than me. You know, we just want the best people in their seats, right, when they join. And I can say from the bottom of my heart, man, it was people from all walks of life on this set, but there was a unity. There was a unity with this crew that humbled me, man. It was pretty beautiful. So just to give you an example, my editors cut together like a sizzle reel kind of at the end of the screening, and we started showing it to people. When people take breaks, we take them and say, hey, look, here's what we made. And dude, people come to me crying like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever worked on. Thank you, you know. And so I don't know. I just really feel like I feel like just working on this movie has had a profound impact on a lot of people. And probably some of the greatest, kindest words to me were from some of the Lionsgate executives that aren't Christian, but they said, wow, this moved me in my heart. This moved me in my soul. Thank you. Like, I'm thinking about things, and I'm not going to get baptized or anything, but like watching your movie, I came very close, you know. So you know, that's cool, man. That's all I'm after, really. I you know, I'm an artist, I'm an entertainer, I'm a storyteller, but if it can make you ask some questions or look a little deeper in your heart, you know, I feel like my work, I feel like I'm doing my best work at that point.
what I've noticed is that with Jesus, not only Jesus Revolution, but also with Unconditional, I feel like your approach to what would be considered a faith-based film is really just having a human experience, right? And you're showing faith kind of intertwined with all of that, but it's really just a film about the human spirit.
Yeah, man, you hit it on the head. I think John and Andy have figured that out too, but there's a certain type of propaganda that goes along with faith genre films, unfortunately, and that is once you have some sort of conversion experience and ask Jesus into your heart, then your life gets really easy and all your problems go away, and
Yeah.
suddenly you're living this perfect life. And man, that's number one, that's bad theology. Number two, it's just not true. Um, you know, the greatest walk you can take with Jesus, holding hands with Jesus, is to fellowship with him in his suffering. And I mean that by understanding that this world is a place of suffering. And he came to like heal the brokenhearted, to set the captives free. And so like if you walk hand in hand with him, you experience the suffering in this world. And suddenly you're like, man, I just said a really harsh word to my coworker. Um, I know how that feels. Why did I just do that? I need to go apologize to her. But like to get acquainted with grief and suffering and actually try to work to subvert those things in this life, I think that's what Jesus called us to do. So it's not like you get into some sort of rhythm in your faith walk where all your problems go away. It's not about
Right.
it's about how you face your problems with your faith, right? So I love that about John and Andy. If you look at Woodlawn, if you will look at that movie, spoiler alert, but they lose the big game in the end. It's
Yeah.
not what it's about. It's like in a propaganda football movie, they have to win, right? So
Yeah.
in the first Rocky movie, he loses the fight
Yeah.
to Apollo. That wasn't the point. The point was, could I go toe to toe with the champion and go the distance and not get knocked out? That was his
Yeah.
goal. And he achieved his goal, even though he lost the fight. And so there's something that's resonant, I think, about that first Rocky, and also with Woodlawn. In a propagandistic faith movie, they would have had to crush on that the last game. They would have had to win it, because there's no problems. Everything's going to be fine. So yeah, we buck that. We buck that tradition or that norm in faith films. I don't think it's right to do that. Um, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's, like I said, it's not biblical. It's not theologically sound. I mean, it's just not true. It's not how the world works. And beyond that, you're cheating yourself out of a deeper walk in your faith if you're like, oh, I'm just not going to suffer anymore. Well, no, that's not the plan. The plan is for you to become um, attenuated to that and try to help other people make it through this life as well, in their faith. And so, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, man. I'm all about human dramas that resonate on a universal level. Someone doesn't even have to espouse my exact views or my worldviews, but I really want people from all walks of life to feel something, to be moved, to ask some questions, and yeah, just I think sometimes the greatest thing that we fail to do, I think, in the faith genre is just tell great stories and be great entertainers. And I think Spielberg, for me, is the epitome of that. He usually has some sort of moral, some sort of
Right.
Judeo-Christian ethic or a theme. He calls them the lesson. So
Right.
what's the lesson that you take from all of his movies? But he's never preaching at you. He's always entertaining you, and you're having a
Right.
good time. But at the end, you're like, oh, wow, E.T. was pretty deep. Whoa, E.T. is about a kid grieving his parents' divorce. E.T. is about loving the other, and so E.T., case in point, there are many historians that believe that E.T. and the massive worldwide phenomenon that it was actually helped to end the Cold War earlier than it would have ended without that
Really?
movie. Yeah, yeah. So
I
he's
watched it
preaching.
3 times as a
Yeah,
kid in the movie
yeah.
theater.
I mean, he's preaching in his own way, but
Yeah.
he's not bludgeoning you over the head with it. It's just very beautiful, and it's just embedded in this sweet story, and yet it carries forth this cultural power to actually change history, you know?
Right.
So anyway, yeah, that's what we're trying to do out there. And I do so appreciate that about Jon and Andy, that they're trying to tell human dramas that resonate universally, but they're also, without fail, man, they're also trying to, in their stories, they're very choosy, and I really appreciate this about them, but they're only trying to pick stories to put out there that are uplifting, inspirational, aspirational, things that lift you up, things that challenge you to a higher walk with God in love, in acceptance and forgiveness. So, you know, I can only imagine, man, I hold grudges. It's in my wiring. I can be a very resentful person, harbors a lot of bitterness, you know, over things that's happened to me in my life. And I wrote that with Jon, and man, there were tears. And I was scoring, because that movie, as I was writing it and working through my own unforgiveness in my life, I was learning to let stuff go and to realize, you know, the wrong stories and just the wrong way I was thinking, and how I was really failing spiritually. And after having worked on that movie, I'm a much more forgiving person. So that entire experience with me as one of the filmmakers, you know, the byproduct was, because of the content and the stories these guys want to tell, I was changed and elevated spiritually, and I'm a better person. I'm more at peace. I'm not as judgmental, not as quick to hold, you know, bitterness or resentment against other people. And so I think that's just a testament to the kind of stories the boys want to do, and it's very much aligned with my worldviews as well. I mean, we have enough hate, we have enough rage out there, you know. I really feel like it's almost like a war. It's like a war of peace and love, you know. So it's counterintuitive to be a warrior for peace and love and compassion and empathy out there. And it is a war, you know, like we are fighting, I think, some of the greatest rage and hatred that I've ever seen culturally in America right now. And, you know, I think a lot of us are tired of it, but really the only way you can fight it is what MLK said so eloquently. You know, hate can't drive out hate. And that's what everybody's trying to do right now. Only love can drive out hate. Dark can't drive out dark. Only light can drive out the darkness, you know.
Right.
And so I think that's a overarching philosophy that Jon and Andy have that I really get down with, especially in the faith genre, when you're bringing God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit into all this.
Well,
I think it needs to say the right things. It just needs to say the right things.
Yeah.
Is what I was gonna say.
From my perspective, having grown up in Christianity, I remember hearing of the Jesus movement, growing up in church. When I watched the movie early on, growing up, we had our faith-based movies were kind of almost like fire and brimstone. Like there were movies in the early '70s, like A Thief in the Night.
Oh yeah.
You know, you remember that?
Oh, I've seen it.
You showed that to a kid at 10 years old at Christian camp, and expect him to sleep. It's crazy.
Nope.
So I think we have moved away from that, talking about a God of judgment, to what I believe that you guys are really kind of moving forward with is, let's talk about a God of love and a God of forgiveness, you know. And I feel like that's what's being brought through these films, and that's why I'm so fascinated by what you guys are doing, and I'm so pleased. Like I sat in the theater and I watched the presentation of Jesus Revolution. I watched a lot of the original clips of Lonnie Frisbee as well, but the presentation of the film was filled with so much love that I was like, finally, somebody got it.
Yeah. Man, that means a lot to me, dude. That's my whole thing. I fail at it every day, but I really think, like, if you look at the example that Jesus laid down with his life, he said, hey, you know, most people have love for their families, but I'm telling you, you've got to love your enemies.
Yeah.
You know, so how many people really are out there loving their enemies? I mean, he threw down just this amazing, amazing gauntlet before us of our spiritual walk. And yeah, man, I think returning back to the root of the thing, the core tenets of Christianity, I believe those to be love, acceptance, forgiveness, belonging, empathy, compassion, And, you know, our culture inside the church and outside the church has been pervaded by this hate and this rage and this angst against the other, to the point that, you know, if you're across some crazy political spectrum, they're now your enemy. And you have to stop them and cancel them or whatever it is you're going to do. But above all this, right? Above all this, who's right and who's wrong and where America goes forward politically as a country, above all that is this kingdom, man. It's this kingdom, and Jesus is the king, and he's telling you all this upside down crazy stuff to do and how to live your life if you want to have like a strong spiritual walk. It's upside down to this world.
Yeah.
And culturally, I feel like we're really far off his mission, even in the church. And so my soapbox, even with this film, is, man, make it about love, dude. Like our politics, this hatred, this division, it's a dead end. It's not going to get us out of this. The only thing that gets us out of this is love. And so for a brief moment in time, you get to see that work, even in the evangelical church, right? Where this white, square, conservative pastor opens up his door to all these, you know, perceived crazy people. And these two really disparate groups find a place of love, acceptance, and forgiveness, belonging in the same location. And I think it would be so amazing if we could get back to that, if there was a return to that. So yeah, man, I'm a big time futurist. I love science. I read a lot of science books, but one guy's research I just have been recently introduced to is he's a neuroscientist, and he does a bunch of research on the impacts of religion, rituals, tradition, spirituality on the brain. And he found some very beautiful things about how we practice religion. But he said one thing he found and he proved is, if you believe in a hateful, judgmental God that's going to throw you into hell, that's actually how you're going to present in the world. You're going to present that exact same way, because that's what you believe about your Absolutely. God, and that's how you're going to show up in the world. And man, I don't read the Bible that way. I mean, I know there's a lot of challenging things in the Bible that are really hard, but you know, one thing I know about this reality that we live in is you can build whatever construction around God and Jesus you want. So we have the Dark Ages, we have the Crusades. I mean, there's some dark, messed up stuff in Christian history.
Yeah.
Even in America, right? There were two very strong pockets of Christianity existing at the same time at the beginning of our country. And one pocket of Christians had slaves, and they used their Bible to keep their slaves down. But then you had this other group of people that read the same Bible, and they were abolitionists. And they were like, man, there's no place for slavery in Christianity. So you have these two cultures assuming these way crazy different, you know, espousing these different views, and somehow finding in the Bible a way to justify their way of being. So that's a little bit frightening to me. I think there's cultural Christianity in the West, and that's always going to exist. And then I think there's Jesus, you know, and in my mind, I've never seen those two any further apart than they are today. Right. And yeah, man. So I think it's a war for hearts and minds, man. It's like a war for love and peace, and trying to get people to understand that we all are culturally trapped in a lot of ways, even inside the church. And until people start waking up to that, it's just continue to be the hatred, the hatred and the division and the rage. So yeah, man, thank you for saying that. I really feel like this movie is letting a lot of love out into the world, and I hope it's getting people to ask some serious questions about who Jesus is, and if you are a Christ follower, how do you show up in the world to represent this kingdom really well.
I think that what you guys did beautifully was to give the characters, like, make them multi-layered, where you saw their flaws. You know, there was a part of the movie where you actually got to see their human side. You saw how God used them spiritually, but at the same time, they were very flawed human beings.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we didn't shy away from that. That was John Erwin. my co-director, that was his big theme in this. And I really feel like between he and I, we're trying to make two separately themed films, but we threaded the needle. So we kind of nailed two themes together. But his strong theme was we have another piece of bad theology in the West, and it comes from our roots in the puritanical faith and the Quaker faith, where you had to be so squeaky clean on the inside that you presented outside perfectly. So all you did was quote scripture, you went to church, you punished your kids when they were bad, and you had no vice. You were perfect, right? But it was it's like what Jesus would call, like, you know, you're beautifully whitewashed and painted. What you are is a tomb full of dead man's rotting bones, right? So like inside, we all know we have to continue to work on ourselves. We're never going to be perfect. And so so I think what happened is you get this puritanical thing where we expect our pastors to be perfect, and when there's a scandal, man, it's like a really hard fall, because suddenly, oh wait, they're a human being. Oh yeah, I forgot. You know. So yeah, man, Jon really wanted to bring forth this. It's pretty provocative. I mean, there is a bit of a gentle, like, kind of rebuke or an excoriation to our movie, but one is to say, hey, Christian leaders, if you're trying to do anything for God, if you're trying to lead or do anything in your life worth passion or vision, look at all of the flawed human beings that the authors of the Bible decided to write about. You know, it's so, again, we're in a place where it's not really biblical, it's not really theological to cancel people. Like, if I was judged on the worst day of my life when I presented as the most terrible version of myself and made the most horrible choices, I don't want to be canceled the rest of my life for that, you know? So cancel culture is pervasive in the evangelical construct. It's also pervasive across our entire country, right? And so I'm about redemption and second chances. Obviously, right, you know, we're getting into murky territory. Obviously, there has to be justice. Right. Obviously, there has to be accountability for crime and for things that you've done, even people you've emotionally abused or just done wrong, right? There needs to be consequences, and there needs to be, you know, there needs to be amends made, right? But I think on the flip side of that, people in the church often feel so shamed out by their past that they'll never make a move. Yeah. They'll never get involved. Not even in a lay person church, like, oh, well, I don't even want to be an usher because I had an affair and I'm divorced and the girl I'm living with is not, you know, whatever. It's like, I don't even want to be a greeter because I feel like crap. I feel like trash and I'm a failure. And that's
the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, if you look at the heroes, if you look at the heroes of the Bible, man, like Hebrews 11, it's a really interesting chapter. My wife has reminded me of this a lot. She's a bit of a rogue Bible scholar, but you know, in Hebrews 11, they celebrate all the people of faith, the men and women. But it's really interesting because they only write the positive. They're like, yeah, by faith, Abraham did all these great things, and by faith, you know, but if you really got into their story, it's a lot more messy than that. And you know, the author is celebrating the parts of their life where they really, you know, stuck to their faith. But there's also a lot of dark, messed up past. They're murderers, they're rapists, they're you know, they're killers. Some of them died pagans. I mean, there's an interesting I think disconnect in Western Christianity where it's, you know, it's judgmental and people are made to feel like they're a failure if they haven't lived some sort of perfect life, and that's not the model.
Well, I'm glad we're moving away from that, you know.
Yeah, man, I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Gotta ask you this question though. So as a composer, I know that you know, listening to the music from Unconditional and parts of Jesus Revolution, like it's really beautiful. So when I think of composers, the first person that comes to my mind is Mike Post. And Mike Post wrote some beautiful theme songs that every time we hear him, we're moved by it. And I find that with the films that you've done, the music it kind of moves you. It engages you with the story. So, what is your process?
Yeah, man. I always tell people I'm a musician who happens to make films for a living. Music is my core wiring. You know, it's the deepest part of me. I think, you know, if I was getting desert islanded and they took everything was taken from me and I was allowed to have one thing, I'd probably keep music. So yeah, for me, man, I'm not a great musician. I'm real simple. I have like kind of a childlike simplicity in the way that I approach music and even the chords that I use. It's a real primary color. It reminds me of, yeah, it just reminds me of when I was a preschooler and first getting into art, like finger painting and crayons and stuff. Like that's just how my scores feel. There's nothing really flashy about them. And yet for some reason that I can't take credit for, I can score a picture. Like I understand what a scene needs. And oftentimes it doesn't need that much music. There are guys out there 5,000 times more talented than me. But if you make it too much about the music, you'll hijack the scene and suddenly it's the score kind of jumping up and down, trying to bring attention to itself. And I hate that. I love scores that you feel, not necessarily scores that you hear. And there's a big difference between that. So my big muse has always been Thomas Newman. He brings a vibe to his movies and his scores that just make you feel things so deeply. But I couldn't, if I was on, you know, any interview, I don't think anybody could hum anything back to me that Thomas Newman did. It's not about the big themes or anything like that. It's just the feels, right? He hits you right in the feels. So let me see, Wall-E, Finding Nemo, The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, American Beauty. They're just if you wrap your head around just if you watched Finding Nemo without any score, it wouldn't have been like the third of the movie. There's so much he's doing under the hood to get you in touch with your feelings and to have you be present. But then also like he doesn't it's never schmaltzy or like forced. Like he feels the emotion. Like whatever the emotion is there that can happen, it's like you just turn a knob and you turn it all the way up as far as it can go without it feeling false or forced. You're not evoking an emotion. You're never trying to do that before. You're always like, oh, this emotion is here. It's almost like revealing, you know, pulling a curtain back, like, oh, look at all this emotion that's here. And the music just kind of helps you uncover and unearth the emotion that's already present in the scene. And so, yeah, I'm very, very cautious about overscoring anything. I will put less music in than I think it needs before I put too much in. And so yeah, Thomas Newman's for sure my muse. And I love the final finishing touches of a score. It feels to me when the thing starts to wake up and breathe and she has a life of her own, and suddenly scenes that people are watching going, oh, that's good, that was good, I like that scene, suddenly there's tears, you know, and they're connecting. And so the scoring process is definitely by far my favorite part of the process for sure.
So I got to ask you about 5 questions that I ask all my guests when they come on and talk to me, and you could answer them however you like. Okay. One of the questions is, what do you know now that you didn't know before you started film business?
Yeah, man. Well, it's deep. I wasn't a person of peace, and I was leaning on other people. I was putting outsized expectations on all these people around me to make me happy, or outsized expectations on my career to make me happy. Well, if I could just make 10 movies before I die, then I'll be happy. No. Well, if my spouse would just do this, or my kids would just do this, then I'll be happy. No. Like, you're responsible for your own happiness. And I had a big gap in my spiritual walk, to be honest. And so, yeah, I think being a filmmaker pushes you to your max emotionally, psychologically at times, and it reveals your heart or lack of it sometimes. And so, yeah, I found myself in the last 7 years just on this path to finding peace now, because the truth of the matter is, what kind of person would I be if I ended up in a wheelchair or blinded and could never watch a movie again, or lost the ability to use my hands, could never play piano or pick up a guitar again? Those are the harder questions to ask. And so I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not even a musician. I'm a soul on a journey in some kind of earth canister, you know, in this crazy reality that we're all supposed to find like the deeper spiritual truths as we go. So I had way too much of my identity wrapped up in me as a musician, me as a filmmaker, me as an artist, so much ego and pride and hubris and all of that. And I'm just a different person now. And so I would say the thing I've learned is it's kind of like what Paul said, like I've learned to be content in any situation. And I'm definitely not where Paul is, but I'm a lot closer than I was 7 years ago, because real happiness is generated from inside of you. It comes from your faith. It also just comes from being centered. And I think putting that ego to death and quieting that ego, especially when you're an artist, you know, and filmmaker. So yeah, I'd say that's the big thing I've learned.
What advice would you give your 19-year-old self?
My 19-year-old self. Yeah, I would say you have an amazing, unquenchable drive right now. Don't take it for granted. And it's a gift. And you don't even understand how much of a gift it is, and you are taking it for granted. So I'm 50 now, and I'm feeling myself starting to slow down, and it's beautiful, man. Like, you know, midlife is crazy.
When did you turn 50?
A month ago.
A month ago. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be there next year.
All right. It's good. It's good.
Happy belated birthday.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, you naturally start to slow down. You naturally want to like give back. I find myself like wanting to invest in more people. At some point when you get older, you're like, okay, wow. I had my prime run. Now things are gonna start slowing down a little bit. And I find myself wanting to slow down. It feels good, but yeah, man, the drive I had when I was younger, it was ridiculously stupid.
What do you want your legacy to be? Or what would you like your legacy to be?
I mean, I don't, it's so funny. I don't care about my movies or my music. I would want people to say that I pushed into love as hard as I could. I went down as deep and as wide into it as I could, and that whatever I found enough of it to hopefully impact some people around me as well, not just my own life. So yeah, it has nothing to do with the art anymore. It's just literally this war to maybe get out an idea to everyone in the world that maybe you're not alone. And even if you feel alone, maybe you're not, and that you are worthy of love and you're worthy of a spot here on this planet. And
amen.
So yeah, man, that would be an amazing epitaph, you know, on a tombstone.
What brings you joy?
Oh man, letting go. You know, it's crazy.
Wow.
I white knuckled most of my career, and when you're a director, man, I think there might be something wrong with you that's from the beginning, because you're trying to control an outcome. You're like, oh, I can direct this movie and I can make it in this way. I can tell the actors what I want them to do, and I can tell the production designer that I want that wall to be blue or whatever it is. And so I think I probably had a control problem. I think I white knuckled most of my life up until 7 or 8 years ago. And so looking at some of the deep Christian spiritual thinkers, I've seen it said over and over and over again. They said the true spiritual journey is letting go. And man, it's so hard for me. Like, that is not natural to my wiring. It's not natural to, like, you know, the fleshly side of me, I guess you would say.
But you're in good company, brother.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, man, it's a trust fall. I think it's a lack of trust. I think it's probably a lack of trust in the goodness of God. I think there's just lots of places where you don't trust, and I'm learning to trust more. I'm definitely learning to let go. And it is the ultimate spiritual journey of, you know, control is an illusion. My life is not my own. I'm on borrowed time. I'm on borrowed energy. At any time, you know, the powers that be up there can be like, yeah, we want those atoms back now. So yeah, man. I mean, dude.
So finally, my final question to you is, what are you grateful for?
I know we live in hard times. I know, like, there's a lot of malaise and a lot of darkness, just a lot of sadness right there. But I'm grateful for this life. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful to be able just to look at all this and see it and be able to think about it in my head, in my mind, from my heart, my soul, just to be able to contemplate these things. And I believe commune with God, you know, like, and talk to God. Like, I think this whole life is a gift. And, you know, even in a depression or an anxiety or a really, really deep grief event, I still think this life is beautiful, and I'm grateful to have this life. And yeah, man. And you know, a billion biological processes have to go right every night for us to wake up. You know, and we don't wake up and go, oh, thank you. I'm going to name these billion molecular processes by one today, just to thank God that I woke up. You know, we don't do that. We take all this stuff for granted. So I'm grateful to be alive and to be able to see all this and try my best to think it through in these ridiculous, whatever, 70 or 80 years that I will have, if I'm lucky.
Yes.
And yeah, man, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be here with you tonight, man.
And I'm grateful for you providing the opportunity to come and have a conversation with me. I appreciate it. I thank you for the gift that you've given us through all of your work, everything that you're going to do, and all the things that you're going to continue to do. My prayer is that it will continue to be great.
Thanks, man. Tell me what you're up to real quick before we jump off.
Okay. So I Phil John's V.I.P. is something that I started because I genuinely wanted to uplift my peers and celebrate my peers, because I've been in the business for a long time, and I know so many people who are on television and networks who are in films. And I just finished, I did a series Kaleidoscope for Netflix that's going on, and I have and I might as well put it out there. I haven't said anything yet, but I have an episode of East New York dropping this Sunday night on CBS. So I'm looking forward to that episode.
Congratulations! In what capacity? In what capacity were you in that episode?
I was the character.
Okay.
I that's all I'll say. Tune in on Sunday night at 9 on CBS.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing.
It was a co-star. So yeah, man. So I'm excited. Yeah, I'm on Kaleidoscope. Go check out Kaleidoscope.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, man. I'm again, like, I'm just excited to meet you, and I love your work and everything that you're doing, man. So I'm sure our paths will cross soon.
You got some Kaleidoscope fans on the.
I see. You know, it was a wonderful concept they had, the way they did it, as far as, like, you can watch the episodes in any order and kind of still get the whole gist of what the story is about. Yeah.
That's so great. Oh man, we missed some questions in here. We should have jumped more.
I know, man. And I was just trying to give you your time to, you know.
Yeah, we edited in Premiere. I'm just looking back through this really quick. We edited in Adobe Premiere. We use the production suite, which puts it on a server, and it allows us to access it from different machines, because we had multiple people editing at the same time. And then there was one other question I wanted to say. If you wanted to get into film editing, it's just like anything else in this business, man. You got to find your people. So you got to find a writer and a director, or write your own stuff. Like, you got to find stuff to edit. So if you don't have a team with you or somebody you could jump in with, you might think about doing what I did and do it all yourself to start out with, because you may not get any kind of hand up at the beginning, and so it's a little bit tough to get started. So
yeah, and it's hard to find people to shadow, right?
It is, man. What breaks my heart, I think, are the writers out there, because a lot of writers are introverted and they're just like sitting around neurotically, like waiting for their phone to ring. I'm like, guys, it's never going to happen. Like, you could have the most incredible script like sitting in your desk right now, but if you don't get out there and, you know, so yeah, that breaks my heart, because there's a lot of people that write scripts, but they're not writing movies, because they will never get their script into a pipeline where it gets made. So I'm always telling people, don't write scripts, write movies. And so it's the same advice I would give to this person who wants to get into editing. Like, you have to push your way into some sort of pipeline that's actually churning forward and churning stuff out. And I didn't have one around me. I was in Dallas, Texas at the time when I was a kid, and there was nobody making feature films. And I was like, okay, well, I don't have a pipeline. I'm gonna have to make my own.
Well,
So that,
Brent, I've been getting into doing writing up pitch decks.
Okay.
Instead of writing the actual scripts. I was during COVID. I was in an app called Clubhouse, and it was late night, and they told me, they was like, why are you writing the scripts? Because you fall in love with the characters. You know, you get really connected to only give it away and have somebody totally rewrite your stuff. So write the pitch deck and then pitch it. You know, don't necessarily. And if someone wants to see a script, then that's when you show it to them.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. I'm a big
advocate. Option, you know?
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of just making stuff. I think I think a lot of people are waiting for the planets to align, and I never felt like that was going to happen for me unless I was taking the initiative and pushing myself forward. So that's amazing you're doing those decks, man. That's so cool.
Yeah. We got to keep working.
Oh, yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Let me come on, man. And yeah, the movie's doing good. It's going to be in theaters to some degree all the way through Easter. So, but if anybody's on that hasn't gone to the theater, try to go see it with a crowd. It's an awesome crowd movie. Like, it's awesome in a big theater with full. And we will start seeing screens start to drop, because we're going into the 4th week. So it's probably gonna have a nice little 6-week run here. But yeah, just if you want to see it, it's definitely a theater crowd movie for sure. So grab some friends and go check it out.
It's worth the date night.
Oh yeah.
If you want to go, check it out.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks again, Brent. I appreciate it.
Guys, thanks for
blessings, brother.
Thanks for being with us, everybody on live, and thank you so much, Phil, man. It's been so great.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Good rest of your night. Good night, everyone.
Take care.